There comes a moment in life when your silence speaks louder than your anger ever could. A moment when you no longer flinch at their words, no longer tremble at their disapproval, no longer chase their validation. That's when they begin to fear you, not because you shouted, not because you fought back, but because you stopped reacting. You stopped feeding their need for control. You see, they poked you to watch you break. They pushed your buttons to hear you scream. They insulted you to see if they could still own a piece of your soul. And for so long, you gave them what they wanted. You reacted, you explained, you defended. But what they didn't expect was your silence. Silence isn't weakness. It's wisdom. It's power. It's the moment you choose peace over chaos, growth over validation, strength over sensitivity. It's when you rise above the noise and say, I owe no one my peace. You're not cold, you're just done being manipulated. You're not distant, you're just done being drained. And when you stop reacting, that's when the chains fall off. That's when the power shifts. That's when they realize they never had control over you. They only had your attention. When someone constantly pulls at your emotions, drains your energy, and tests your patience, there comes a time when you have to make a powerful decision, not out of hatred, not out of bitterness, but out of deep self-respect. Emotional detachment isn't about building walls around your heart. It's about putting up boundaries around your peace. It's saying, I will no longer allow your behavior to dictate how I feel about myself. Because the truth is, people who are used to controlling you through your reactions will always push back harder when you start pulling away. But that's where your transformation begins. You stop answering every call to conflict. You stop letting every insult shake your soul. You begin to watch the chaos instead of becoming it. And as hard as it may be at first, you slowly realize that detachment doesn't make you cold, it makes you clear. You're no longer begging for closure from those who never gave you peace to begin with. You're no longer breaking your back to be understood by people committed to misunderstanding you. Emotional detachment is where you choose sanity over sacrifice, where you give yourself permission to heal without apology. There's a power that comes when you no longer feel the need to explain yourself to everyone who questions your worth. For too long, many of us try to justify our pain to people who don't even care about the truth. We beg them to see our heart, to understand our struggles, to value our efforts. But what do we gain? Sleepless nights, inner torment, a growing bitterness that steals our joy. But when you emotionally detach, you say no more. You stop arguing with people who have already decided they're right, no matter the cost. You stop seeking validation from those who were never qualified to give it. And in that space, you begin to breathe again. Detachment allows you to reclaim your power without ever raising your voice. You no longer rush to defend yourself. You no longer need to be heard by those who only listen to respond. And that's not indifference, that's strength. You've simply made peace with the fact that not everyone deserves access to your emotional world. You don't hate them. You just finally love yourself enough to stop bleeding for people who never offered a bandage. People often mistake emotional detachment for arrogance or distance, but they fail to see the war you had to fight within yourself to get to that point. They weren't there on the nights you cried in silence, wondering why your kindness was used against you. They didn't see how many pieces you had to pick up after trusting the wrong people over and over again. Detachment doesn't come from pride. It comes from pain. It was born in the fire of disappointment and the ashes of broken expectations. And once you've risen from that, you no longer give your emotional keys to people who only know how to break things. You start to measure relationships by peace, not by history. You begin to evaluate interactions not by how long you've known someone, but by how they make you feel after a conversation. And when someone drains you consistently, no matter their title in your life, you begin to detach, not because you're cruel, but because you're finally choosing to protect your light. This journey of detachment is really a journey back to yourself, back to your center, back to your worth. When your peace becomes more important than their opinion, everything shifts. There's a certain confidence that grows in silence. You stop being triggered by every snide comment, every guilt trip, every manipulative smile. You begin to observe rather than react. And it's in that stillness where your power multiplies. The same people who once controlled your emotions with a look or a word now find themselves powerless. Why? Because you've changed the rules. You've stopped playing their game. You don't engage in petty drama. You don't feel the need to clap back or prove yourself. Your absence becomes louder. than your presence ever was. And the truth is, some people only stayed in your life because they could control your emotional thermostat. The moment you stopped reacting, you stopped feeding their ego, they may accuse you of being distant, they may call you selfish, but that's only because they've lost the ability to drain you. Detachment is not about revenge. It's about choosing yourself in the face of emotional manipulation. And when you master that art, the world around you begins to shift. Not because they changed, but because you did. We live in a world where everyone wants instant reactions. People poke, provoke, and press just to get a rise out of you. And when you finally stop giving them that satisfaction, they panic. Because your reaction used to be their reward. When you detach emotionally, you take that reward away. You stop giving them the drama they feed off. You stop letting their chaos ruin your day. And most importantly, you begin to see clearly. You see who truly loves you for your peace, not your pain. You start to distinguish between those who support you and those who silently sabotage you. And that kind of clarity only comes from detachment. You can't find yourself when you're constantly entangled in someone else's emotional mess. You can't heal if you're constantly reopening the same wounds by explaining yourself to the wrong people. At some point, you realize that your energy is precious, your peace is sacred, and your emotional life is your responsibility, not anyone else's playground. That shift, when you stop letting others set the tone of your emotions, that is the beginning of your emotional freedom. Some of the deepest healing happens in silence. When you stop reacting, you stop performing, you stop pretending you're okay just to keep others comfortable. You stop faking smiles just to maintain peace that doesn't even exist. Emotional detachment isn't about becoming emotionless. It's about reclaiming your right to feel without being controlled. You start to give yourself grace. You give yourself space to hurt, to process, to grow without the pressure of meeting someone else's timeline. And once you detach, you become more aware of what triggers you, who drains you, and what environments suffocate your soul. You begin to create space for people who actually respect your energy, people who don't demand constant explanations or punish your silence, people who understand that love doesn't always have to be loud, it just has to be safe. And in that safety, your healing multiplies. In that silence, you discover parts of yourself you had buried beneath years of reaction. You find your strength, not in how loud you can be, but in how deeply you can remain unmoved by things that once broke you. That is the beauty of emotional detachment. It gives you you back. You know you've grown when you can look at someone who used to control your emotions and feel nothing but peace. Not hate, not love, just peace. Emotional detachment allows you to finally stand in your truth without being shaken by their opinions or judgments. You no longer carry the weight of being understood by those who were never willing to listen. You stop dancing around their feelings while yours are trampled. And in that detachment, you stop asking for closure because you've given it to yourself. You no longer wait for apologies that will never come. You no longer try to fix people who broke you without remorse. You start to see your own heart again, not through their eyes, but through your own clarity. You start showing up for yourself in ways they never did, and maybe they'll never understand the version of you that no longer reacts, no longer explains, no longer pleads. But that's okay. Because you finally learned that your worth isn't measured by their ability to see it. It's measured by your decision to protect it. Emotional detachment is not about being done with people. It's about being done abandoning yourself. Your energy is a currency, more valuable than gold, more limited than time. Every single day you wake up with a certain amount of it, and just like money, where you choose to spend it determines your return. The truth is, too many people are emotionally bankrupt, not because of what they've lost, but because of what they've wasted. On people who never deserved it. On conflicts that should have been ignored. On arguments that weren't worth the breath. You don't need to prove your point to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. You don't need to fight every battle that knocks at your door. Sometimes the strongest response you can give is none at all. Silence, restraint, discipline. That's the real proof of power. Not clapping back, not exploding, not chasing validation. When you hold back, when you protect your energy instead of scattering it, you begin to grow in ways you never imagined. And people notice. Oh, they notice. Because they were feeding off your reactions. They were surviving on your energy. When you pull that away, you're not just removing noise. You're removing their access to you. And that is where your transformation begins. It's easy to get pulled into emotional chaos. It's tempting. Someone disrespects you and your pride rises. Someone doubts you and you want to prove yourself. Someone spreads lies and you want to correct the narrative. But here's the catch. Every time you react, you're handing over a piece of your energy. Every single time. And after a while, you don't even realize how drained you've become. You're walking around tired, not because life is hard, but because you keep giving your peace away to people who never earned it. Protecting your energy isn't selfish, it's survival. When you begin to say, I don't have time for this, you're not avoiding life, you're choosing it. You're choosing joy over drama, clarity over confusion, direction over distraction. And in doing that, you start to rise above what used to pull you under. People will call you cold. People will say you changed. But don't you dare explain your peace. Don't you dare defend your evolution. The people who truly care about your spirit won't drain it. They'll guard it with you. Everyone else, let them be confused by your silence. We've been conditioned to believe that reacting is strength, that the louder you get, the more powerful you seem. That if you don't say something, you're weak or letting someone get away with something. But that's a lie. True strength is being unbothered in the face of disrespect. True strength is knowing exactly what someone is trying to do and choosing not to play into it. When someone insults you, they want your reaction. When someone tests your boundaries, they're hoping you'll lose your cool. When someone gossips about you, they want to know they still have a place in your mind. But when you remain centered, when you don't respond, don't flinch, don't react, they lose their grip on you. You take back control. You keep your emotional wallet shut. Because the truth is, some people only exist in your life to drain you. They have nothing of value to give. They thrive on conflict, and the more you react, the more they win. Don't let your energy be the prize they keep stealing. Let your stillness be the wall they can't climb. Your emotional energy is sacred, and the moment you start treating it that way, your entire life begins to shift. You stop entertaining conversations that go nowhere. You stop staying in rooms that make your soul feel small. You stop chasing explanations from people who enjoy your confusion. And the peace that follows is unreal. It's like breathing for the first time after being underwater for years. But it takes discipline, because conflict has a magnetic pull. It drags you in, dares you to defend yourself, dares you to match their dysfunction. But when you say, I'm not going to fight this, you are not surrendering. You are choosing growth. You are telling the universe, I trust myself enough not to prove myself. That's power. That's wisdom. And it's rare. Most people are still burning out their emotional energy on things but not you. Not anymore. You're not being cold. You're being careful. You're not being passive. You're being protective. And anyone who mistakes your peace for weakness is still living in a world where noise equals strength. Your peace is your responsibility, not theirs, not the world's, yours. And that means you get to choose where your energy flows. You get to choose what deserves your attention and what deserves your silence. This is not about ignoring your emotions. It's about mastering them. It's about recognizing that just because you feel anger doesn't mean you have to act on it. Just because you feel disrespected doesn't mean you have to respond in kind. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is take a breath, step back, and say nothing. Not because you don't care, but because you care too much about yourself to let someone else steal your light. Every time you react, you are responding to someone else's chaos. But when you stay grounded, when you remain still, you force them to deal with their own. And that discomfort, that silence, that absence of your reaction, it teaches them far more than your words ever could. So protect your energy. It's not an endless supply. Use it for growth, for healing, for love, not for war with people who will never see your worth. It's important to realize that not everyone is capable of handling your peace. Some people need conflict like they need air. They thrive in mess. They stir the pot and then play victim when the storm hits. And if you're not careful, they'll pull you into their tornado and blame you for the damage. But when you stop reacting, they have nothing to hold on to, nothing to push, nothing to twist. You disarm them without lifting a finger, and that's what makes them uncomfortable. They can't manipulate someone who's not emotionally accessible. They can't control someone who's grounded. And slowly they begin to fall back, not because you told them to, but because they have no power left over you. Your silence becomes your shield. Your peace becomes your weapon. You're not playing the game anymore. You've changed the rules. And while they scramble to provoke you, you keep walking in your truth, head high, heart protected. That's the freedom that comes with guarding your energy. You don't lose people. You lose the version of yourself that tolerated being emotionally robbed. You are not here to spend your life reacting to every fire someone else starts. You are here to build, to grow, to love, to evolve. And none of that can happen if you're constantly drained by battles that don't belong to you. Stop handing out access to people who haven't earned it. Stop explaining yourself to those who only want your reaction. You don't owe anyone your peace. You don't owe anyone a performance. What you owe is to your future self, a life that's no longer run by emotional exhaustion, a life where you wake up with clarity, not chaos, a life where you choose your energy wisely and protect it fiercely. Because when you stop spending your energy on conflict, you begin investing it into purpose, into healing, into vision, into love. That's when your life changes, not when you win arguments, not when you prove your point, but when you choose yourself. Quietly, calmly, consistently, every single day. Stillness is misunderstood in today's noisy world. People think if you're quiet, you're weak. If you don't respond, you're afraid. If you don't engage, you're giving up. But that couldn't be further from the truth. Stillness is not about running away. It's about rising above. It's the strength to sit with your emotions without letting them control you. It's the discipline to pause when every part of you wants to react. Stillness is power because it comes from inner confidence, not outer approval. Anybody can shout back, curse, argue, or retaliate. That doesn't take wisdom. It just takes impulse. But stillness, that requires a certain depth, a certain maturity. It takes a soul that has been through storms and has learned that reacting to every drop of rain only leaves you drowning. Stillness is not silence forced by fear. It's a silence chosen by power. When you choose stillness, you're saying, I don't need to prove anything. I don't need to be loud to be strong. I know who I am. And that knowledge, that peace, that unshakable calm, it will scare the ones who can't control you anymore. Because stillness is the sound of someone who has mastered themselves. There's a kind of strength that doesn't scream. It doesn't show up with fists clenched or words sharpened like knives. It shows up in presence, in peace, in posture. Stillness is that moment when someone tries to shake you and finds you rooted. It's the power of knowing that not every attack needs a response. Not every insult deserves your breath. And not every trigger should be pulled. Stillness is refusing to let people pull you out of your character. It's standing in your truth so solidly that chaos bounces off you like wind against a mountain. People won't understand it. They'll accuse you of being cold. They'll say you don't care. They'll call your silence weakness because they're used to noise, to fire, to conflict. But you're done with all that. Stillness is the result of choosing peace after being surrounded by pressure. It's the result of healing. And only people who've been through storms know what it takes to sit still while the world around you tries to break your balance. That's why stillness scares people. They know they can't shake you anymore. Stillness is not passive. It's not about being numb or disconnected. It's active discipline. It's the refusal to be dragged back into wars you've already won. When you're still, you're listening to yourself, to your heart, to what matters. You're observing instead of absorbing. You're taking your time instead of rushing to defend your name. And in that stillness, you gain perspective. You realize how much energy you've wasted reacting to things that didn't deserve you. You understand that sometimes people just want to see if they can make you flinch, if they can pull you into their mess. But when you don't move, when you stay calm, they're left exposed. Their tactics fall flat. Stillness is your boundary. It's your signal to the world that you're no longer available for nonsense. You're not avoiding the fight. You're transcending it. And that shift, that ability to walk away from drama without losing your dignity, that's strength. Because anyone can react. It takes a warrior to stay still and watch chaos pass without inviting it into their spirit. Stillness is the space between reaction and response. It's that sacred pause where you decide not to let someone else's energy shape yours. It's where clarity lives. And in a world that thrives on instant reactions, being still is revolutionary. When you're still, you're not ignoring what's happening. You're watching it unfold without giving it power. You see through manipulation. You spot projection. You recognize the games. And rather than engage, you stay in control. That's not surrender, that's strategy. Stillness is how you protect your energy. It's how you break cycles that were designed to pull you down. And sure, people might think you're quiet because you have nothing to say, but the truth is, you're quiet because your peace is louder than any argument. Stillness doesn't make you less, it makes you whole. It brings you back to yourself. It gives you time to choose wisdom over reaction, patience over pride, self-respect over self-sabotage. And the people who used to provoke you will feel that shift. They'll feel the distance, and they'll realize the stillest version of you is the most dangerous of all, because they can't shake what's unshakable. There's a war going on every day, a war for your attention, your energy, your peace. And most people are out here fighting battles they don't need to fight, bleeding for things that aren't worth a single drop. But when you embrace stillness, you remove yourself from that battlefield. You walk off the front lines. You stop chasing closure, stop proving your point, stop responding to nonsense. Stillness is not about quitting. It's about knowing you've already won by not letting it affect your spirit. You learn to smile in the face of provocation, not because you're fake, but because you've grown. You've seen what reacting costs you. You've felt the exhaustion of trying to fix what was never yours to carry. And now you value your breath too much to waste it. You value your mind too much to clutter it. You value your time too much to spend it in circles. That's what stillness gives you: control. Control over your emotions, control over your decisions, control over your future. Because the person who is still, who is centered, who is calm in the middle of chaos, that's the person who truly owns the moment. Stillness is what you gain when you stop being a slave to your impulses. It's what grows in you when you stop letting people press buttons. You finally removed. They can't play you like they used to because your silence is now your weapon. Not silence that comes from fear, but silence that comes from awareness. You finally realize that not every story needs your side. Not every argument needs your voice. You've traded noise for focus. You've traded reaction for response. You've traded urgency for presence. And what happens in that stillness is beautiful. You get to hear yourself again. You get to feel what's real again. The world slows down and the noise dims. And the people who once had you on an emotional roller coaster, they lose access. They don't know how to respond when you don't explode. They don't know how to manipulate a calm heart. That's the power of stillness. It frees you from being everyone's emotional puppet. It makes you your own anchor, your own peacekeeper. And when you've tasted that kind of power, that kind of control, you'll never trade it for noise again. Every time you choose stillness, you're telling the universe, I trust myself. I trust that I don't need to react to be relevant. I trust that my worth isn't measured by my words in a fight. I trust that staying grounded will bring more growth than chasing justice ever could. Stillness is the evidence that you're walking in wisdom, that you've been through the fire and came out refined, not bitter, that you've learned how to turn triggers into teachers. And when life tries to shake you, when people try to bait you, when storms try to move you, you don't collapse. You don't panic. You don't fall apart. You breathe. You stand tall. You remain unmoved. Because stillness is not the absence of action. It's the most intentional action you can take. You're no longer trying to win arguments. You're trying to win your peace. You're trying to protect your future. And that future, it belongs to the still, to the focused, to the ones who walk through fire and come out quieter, not because they're weak, but because they've found a strength the world can't shake. In a world that constantly demands your reaction, your attention, your energy, choosing stillness is the most powerful stand you can take. Stillness is not weakness. It's not surrender. It's not you backing down from the challenges life throws at you. It's you stepping into your highest self. It's you saying, I don't need to fight to prove who I am. It's the moment you understand that your peace is too precious to hand over to people who only want to disturb it. Stillness allows you to reclaim your power, not by shouting louder, but by choosing silence that speaks louder than any words ever could. When you stop reacting to every insult, every lie, every attempt to control your emotions, you regain control over your life. That's what this journey is about. Building a version of you that doesn't just survive chaos, but rises above it. This strength doesn't come overnight. It's built through pain, through patience, through walking away from things you once felt the need to fix, but now you know better. You've grown, you've healed, you've learned the power of protecting your energy like the sacred treasure it is. You don't respond out of emotion anymore. You respond with intention. You don't fight battles that drain you. You choose the ones that grow you. And most of all, you've learned that sometimes the greatest display of strength is not moving at all. Because when the world expects your reaction and you give it stillness, that's when they realize they no longer control your peace. You do. You always did. So walk in that calm. Stay grounded in that power. Let your stillness speak volumes, even when your lips remain silent. Let your peace confuse those who once thrived off your chaos. And let your silence teach others that not everything deserves your energy. Keep rising, keep choosing yourself, and never forget, your calm is your crown. Wear it with honor. Thank you for being here. May your spirit always remain rooted in strength, and may your silence forever echo with power. God bless you.